You remember what you said last week about old, right? People who
Oh
think
yeah.
others are too old, were born old, or some shit. I don't know. You said
Well, Cary
something.
Grant, the bishop's wife, man. Cary Grant, the paradigm, the paragon of a man's man. You know, back in the movie The Bishop's Wife, I think 1947, 1946. But Cary Grant plays an angel in that movie. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. And man, he is so suave. He
Carrie.
is so smooth. I mean, this guy, woo! He inspired me to dress not like a boy, but like a man. But in the movie, he says to the bishop's wife, right?
Yeah.
Because he's fallen in love with her. She's fallen in love with him, but it's 1947, you know, so there's no adultery. But
Mm.
anyway, he says to the bishop's wife, he says, the only people that are old are people that were born old to begin with.
George
You
Carlin
know?
actually had a skit about that, and he makes comments about, young guys who are hardwired like old men, and they're just old men throughout their whole fucking life. And I've seen that shit. It's really weird to see guys like that, and especially when they're like younger than you. And that's the older I've gotten, the more I have noticed this more and more among younger generations. I mean, it's not just younger
Oh,
generations. It's just
what do
like
you mean by old man, though? Like, what do you mean?
there's just people. There's like just people with like this mindset that we associate with the elderly,
Uh,
right? They don't like change. Like they're just hard to describe. You know,
hmm.
like they adopt a very boomer mindset, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Um,
Because I mean, I think of our older friend who's in his 70s. You know what I'm talking about. This guy, we're trying to get him on the podcast
he's
actually, and
he's full of life and shit.
hell yeah, man. I
Yeah.
can't wait to get him on here.
Yeah, George Carlin made the distinction between an old man and an old fuck. So this is when he was
Okay.
obviously approaching his later years, right? So in
Yeah.
this skit, he's talking about, like, I'm not an old man, I am an old fuck, and there's a difference. Old men are, it's like a more of an attitude and a mindset. Inflexibility and just
Huh.
stuff like that. Like being an
Okay.
inflexible fart where you feel like you don't really
Yeah.
have to learn anything, you don't have anything left to understand, you just kind of are stuck. It makes me think of people who peak in high school. You know what I mean? Like when I think of people who are hardwired like that, I think of people who peak in their fucking high school years. And then they just go downhill from there.
Well, I think when you were mentioning that, I was thinking, well, people who just refuse to learn.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also part of it. You know,
I
like
mean, I'll
they
be learning to the day I die. I'm a learner.
Yeah, there's just people who just do not really have that desire to learn more about the world. They feel like they have it
Yeah.
figured out, and they just kind of, you know, just go about day to day life without learning anything until they just croak.
Yeah, man. And that's one thing too. Our friend said, this guy, he said, remember he was talking to us and he said, this world will be saved by the young people. And he went on to elaborate and he said, the young people, they're the ones who are going to save this world. They're the ones who the old people need to listen to. I was like, man, that's
I
deep.
I don't disagree with him on that front. However, a part of me wonders, like, damn, what if he had when he was like in his younger years? What if a guy from like a couple generations prior said the same thing to him?
Hmm.
What
I
if
don't know.
what if there's just kind of like a repeat of sorts? Do you know what I mean?
A loop.
Yeah. I feel like there's just a
Oh, yeah.
cycle where there's always going to be some people who do, they stand up for the young and they are young at heart and blah, 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 blah. Not really a nuanced theory by any means, but I I respect that mindset because it represents humility while counting on their it's humility that's coupled with experience. I think to have that kind of position,
Oh, yeah. And
because
wisdom. I
yeah,
mean,
Because one thing, and this is especially true about men, right, is that an insecure man is going to be very uncomfortable around someone who is younger than them and is either he's better at them in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I can empathize because remember I just told you my nephew.
Well, here's the thing though. Like, I mean, you're like, damn, you're not like ruling it out because you're older. You have a fucking career, and he probably boxes more than you. Plus, he's like
Jealous,
young as fuck. Like,
yeah.
But
I wish he were around when I was in training full time.
Yeah. Like he's got some advantages on you. Not gonna lie there. But it's just like, I don't know. Because like, damn, that's a lot of expectations put on young people. Like, shit. How many of them can afford a medical emergency, and you're fucking expecting them to save the goddamn world? That's a tough one. I mean, when I hear people talking about climate change and giving the best kind of like solutions to it, at least from my opinion, it usually is coming from younger people, as well as like scientists, of course, and experts. I mean, experts are a thing. And then I think about how disempowered they are. Like, so like I was watching a video this morning about, you know, climate change and how obviously not enough is being done, right? But the thing is, it's not like your fault or my fault that's the case. It's the fact that like a handful of these corporations and of course countries' militaries are part of the problem. You know, like you and I don't really get to determine whether the whole city of Columbus, for example, becomes, you know, like pedestrian friendly, or at least not by ourselves. I mean, there are things we could do to advocate and push for change and hopefully in the future accomplish something like that if that's what we wanted to do. But at the same time, it's not like you and I can just like throw money on like a solar powered like some like public transit. You know what I mean?
No, I do, yeah. But I think too we each individually have to reduce our carbon footprint, especially if we live in a more developed country. Because the developed countries are the ones that are freaking consuming way too many resources.
Right. There is a disproportionate amount of consumption, obviously.
Absolutely.
And I think you should do something to obviously curb your bad habits, right? I mean, you know, maybe walking more, not throwing garbage out in the fucking middle of nature. On the other hand, though, like, let's also not shift responsibility onto the individual for tackling climate change that's being done by, like I said before, these massive fucking corporations. And
well, yeah, that's why it's continuing.
Yeah,
the governments and the corporations are in league because it's profitable.
Right. Like, even when we talk about fucking climate change, for example, and this video, you know, brought this up. Like, why is it that, you know, the military budget is never put into consideration? Right? You know, the Pentagon is a fucking massive polluter. The Department of Defense fucking pollutes way fucking more massively. So, like I said, a lot of the discourse, especially in mainstream media, well, actually not even just mainstream media, just like media in general, focuses way too much on individual onus and responsibility for our situation collectively. Like, I mean, honestly, if you wanted to go completely carbon like neutral or whatever, right? Then you'd live out in the fucking woods. You'd be like living in the fucking woods, or you'd become like a caveman. You'd live some kind of like anarcho-primitivist lifestyle, right? You would eschew civilization and all that. But even if you, as an individual, did that, well, the largest polluters are still going to be fucking polluting, whether you do that or whether you go vegan or not. And like I said, I'm not arguing against changing your habits. Obviously not. Like, minimize your own harm while you can, but don't also think that your harm or your impact is determining the fate of the whole world. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, yeah, makes perfect sense. It has to be collective action, like everything.
Yeah. And it's in the guilty parties are like the ones who hold power in our society. And who holds...
Which are the older people, going back to our young and old.
Yeah, you can say older people too, but really it's more in the hands of capitalists. It's in the hands of billionaires. It's in the hands of governments. And
that gets propagated from the young, from the old to the young.
Yeah,
with our economic system.
Yeah, obviously, like, older people are obviously more in charge because of, time and intergenerational wealth and shit like that.
Yeah.
But still, it is more of like, okay, there are guilty parties here, or there are ones who have the real power here. And I think it's more of like a matter of, there has to be like a mass movement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It has to be like some kind of democratic mass movement to get shit done. Otherwise, we're going to go past that point of no return. And, we're going to still have fucking Jeff Bezos on like some kind of compound in an island while the rest of the world is like drowning and burning to shit. Yeah. And he's like trying to pitch this idea to investors who are surviving, that, oh, hey, we could build a space colony or some shit like that.
Yeah. And that's what scares me too, is we are incentivized, right, in this economic system to pollute the planet, to destroy habitat. And this also affects too kind of what we're talking about in this series, because I was watching something on the Majority Report by Sam Cedar yesterday about the pardon me if I say this wrong, the Chiapas region of Mexico.
Oh, Chiapas. Yeah.
Chiapas. There you go.
Yeah.
I apologize. Chiapas, and about the indigenous people there and the corporations in league with the government and cartels that are forcibly evicting these people from their land so that they can use it for profit or capital, to use it as capital.
Yeah, probably to like develop it in some way or another, even though most of these people are indigenous Maya and stuff like that.
And also about the role that NAFTA in '94 played. Whew! Mm-hmm. My gosh, scandalous, man.
Oof. Motherfucking NAFTA.
But man, that's I think we need younger people in the government too.
Yeah,
with fresh ideas.
I mean,
and people who haven't been jaded by the economic system or bamboozled by the economic model that we have.
I mean, just look at Gabriel Boric, 35, president of Chile.
Yeah. And and I was out there, everybody. Hey, I was actually listening to that today because it dropped today, episode 30.
Mm-hmm.
No, or 29. No, 30.
It's 30.
Episode 30. I was chopping it up, the audio up into specific. My brain is leaking right now. Specific audio points, I guess, for different clips.
Yeah,
and I remembered in the article it said that the Gabriel Boric guy was promising to get rid of the neoliberal economic model of Chile.
Hell yeah.
Whew. Well, I popped at that.
We love us some burying of the economic models of.
But he's the youngest Chilean president, right? 35.
Yep.
So that just goes to show you, going back to our initial discussion about young and old, I think the younger generation, man, and he's 2 years younger than I am, so I think the younger generation needs to keep riding that momentum and don't allow themselves to be fettered by the economic system. Now, what do I mean? Hey, young world out there, this is a PSA, a public service announcement. Young world, hey, young world, What I mean is that you look around you. Man is born free, but everywhere is in chains. What does that mean? It means man, especially in our economic system, man, and I say man as mankind, everywhere you look, mankind is forced to take a buck. Unless you're fortunate enough to be super rich, in which you exploit people. But anyway, mankind has families. Man has families they got to take care of. They got bills to take care of, mortgages, cars. They got kids, wives, spouses. Man is born free, but everywhere is in chains, right? Some of those things we don't need, but we're told by the propaganda in this economic system that we need those things, when in reality it's just a bill.